Imagine you've made the cash and bought into the World Series of Poker for $10,000, even though the economy is in a recession. You've sat at the tables for 10 grueling days, and now, some 6,844 eliminations or so later, you're sitting across from a young 22-year-old with an emotionless stare that could turn even the most seasoned veteran's blood into ice. And at the end of it all, he piles up more than $9.1 million in front of you and finally cracks a smile as he becomes the youngest champion in WSOP history. Who could this mysterious young man be who sat down with the pros and gave them a run for their money? Let's find out together. This person we are talking about is none other than 22-year-old Peter Eastgate, the poker prodigy that has been turning heads across the globe since his grand win in 2008 and gave the pros a real challenge after many years of unchallenged dominance. In a sport where the number of gray hairs on your head determined how good you were at the game, Peter challenged the norm by becoming the youngest ever to win the World Series of Poker, or WSOP, as it's more commonly known. Although Peter retired from competitive poker after this legendary win, the mark he left was indelible and is still talked about to this day. During the WSOP in 2008, there were so many rumors and stories swirling around the 22-year-old at the time that his mere presence caused many to fold and leave before they garnered a loss by his hand. So what are the series of events that took place that led to Peter Eastgate winning it all and taking home the grand prize of $9.1 million? Well, let's discover that together. The WSOP presents an opportunity to every serious poker enthusiast around the world to multiply their entry fee of $10,000 into a multi-million-dollar prize. And as such, 6,844 poker players from across the globe come together to have a chance to nab the golden goose. But eventually, these 6,844 players are whittled down to just 9 players, who sit with the chance to take home the grand prize. Peter entered the competition as an inconspicuous, regionally known player. On the international stage, Peter was practically invisible, but that would change as soon as he sat at the final table. Eastgate would first find himself sitting across from Chino Ream, a formidable opponent who had earned over $1 million in wins at this point and was known for his aggressive playstyle. Chino had entered the play as the stack, with $3.5 million in hand, enough for 15 big blinds. But Chino's whole cards, the ones only known to him, were an ace-king, a strong, premium suit. This made Chino enter into aggression mode and go all in. Eastgate picked up on Chino's desperation to move up from being the short stack and called his hand, although he only had an ace-queen. Ream was now more confident than ever, but in a moment it would all come tumbling down, and the table would learn just why Peter's nickname was Iceman. But when the cards were flopped, it took the entire crowd and Ream by surprise, because Eastgate ended up spiking his queen. Ream had to get a king to win now, but both the turn and the river gave only a 9 of clubs and 4 of hearts, effectively making Eastgate win the pot against Ream. With the most well-known pro at the table taken down, all those who were left at the table were sensations, just like the Iceman. Eastgate's next target would be the man who was commanding the table thus far, Dennis Phillips. Phillips was a trucking account manager who became a poker sensation, and he kept raising and re-raising till he had enough chips to reach the roof. But the Iceman wasn't shaken. He kept cool, although he had pocket threes, which was a far from premium. Even so, the Iceman did not even show a hint of disappointment and refrained from going all in. He instead pandered to Phillips' ego and only gave a small raise of $1.4 million, which Phillips saw as Eastgate possessing a weak hand. And he kept raising and re-raising to try and get Eastgate to quit the pot, but then Eastgate seized the opportunity and went all in. Phillips knew immediately that he was played and decided to cut his losses and folded, launching Eastgate into the lead. Eastgate then proceeded to narrowly beat Scott Montgomery on what can only be termed as the greatest river card of all time. Montgomery's ace-3, which had a 98% chance of winning with the flop ace and turn trip ace, was blown out of the water with a 6 of clubs that allowed Eastgate to pair it up with his pocket sixes and pull a full house. While the Iceman had made calculated turns, this was one moment where everyone was sure that he was thanking his lucky stars, although his face remained as inert as ever. Once Montgomery was out of the scene, Ivan Demidov, the Russian phenomenon, tried to take Eastgate down with his opening hand of King 7, which was a much better hand than what Eastgate had, the 3-2, one of the worst opening hands in poker. Nonetheless, when the flop was made, both Demidov and Eastgate spiked their hands. But even though Demidov's hand was dominant, he would end up checking twice. The turn brought in a king, which once again gave Demidov a 2 pair of kings and 7s, but with the final river card, Eastgate ended up with a set of 3s. Demidov, sensing danger, ended up folding, thus letting Eastgate get away with the pot once more. He would then turn the tide in his favor once more with a set of pocket 5s and found himself in a bid with Elon Schwartz, who was holding an ace-10. And although he did not want to play his hand, the small blind forced him to. The flop brought in a deuce, king, and 8, missing Schwartz's pair completely. Eastgate would then bid $1.5 million and force Schwartz to either call or fold. Hoping for a miracle on the river, he called and matched Eastgate's bet. But when the river was revealed to be another 5, Eastgate got a full house with a pair of kings. Eastgate's final bet of $4.6 million made Schwartz go all in. And sure enough, Eastgate ended up winning the hand, wiping Schwartz off the board and sending him home. And if you thought the Iceman finally celebrated, you'd be wrong. His face remained unwavering as he locked in for the prize. The table was now seated with the final 3, Peter Eastgate, Ivan Demidov, and Dennis Phillips. Phillips, who had dominated the table thus far, had finally found himself playing short stack. Eastgate was handed pocket 3s, which he used to his benefit by raising the bid and hoping to either steal the blinds or build a pot if called. Phillips had a 10-9 offsuit with him, which wasn't the best hand to open with, but this did not deter Phillips because he had been folding for what had felt like the better half of the match, and the blinds were eating away at his already dwindling stacks. Phillips finally called, and then the flop came as case 3S, which ended up giving a set for Eastgate and leaving Phillips out in open water with nothing to match. Seeing an opportunity, Eastgate put in another $1.5 million into the bet, forcing Phillips into a corner. When Phillips went all in, Eastgate called, and with the turn an ace came up, ending his chance of making it out of this ordeal alive. But before we get to the face-off between the Eastgate and Demidov, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more poker content like this. The emotionless Dane and the Russian phenomenon finally faced each other. Demidov opened with a 4-2 of hearts and Eastgate with an ace-5. The flop gave a deuce, king, and 3, giving Demidov a pair and Eastgate a wheel draw. Eastgate would bet $1.5 million and Demidov would subsequently call, and the turn would bring with it a 4, completing Eastgate's straight. Demidov was nonetheless under the illusion that his 2 pairs were probably stronger than whatever Eastgate had, and decided to check. Eastgate would then raise $2 million, which Demidov would raise to $6 million, betting half his chips in the process. Eastgate would raise another $4 million, and the river would be the final nail in the coffin, as it brought in a 7. Demidov would then go all in, to which Eastgate would snap call his $16.5 million all in. With the turn of the cards, Eastgate would become the champion of the 2008 World Series of Poker, winning a prize of $9.1 million.